In this lecture, we will learn some key points that are used in the risk management or uncertainty performance domain. So this topic will cover both PMBOK 6 and PMBOK Guide 7. And this is a very important topic if you are looking for PMP or any project management examination in near future. And this is also helpful for all project management professionals who are having hard time in going through the key terms that are used in risk analysis, risk management, or dealing with uncertainty as of PMBOK Guide 7. Without much delay, let's see what we are covering in this topic here. The agenda for today, we will be covering some discussions in order to understand some key terms such as risk, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, volatility, opportunities and threats, and some of the terms used in risk management such as risk averse, risk appetite or risk threshold, and risk tolerance. We will also see how we can work on removing them and discuss key aspects of these terms with the help of simulated quizzes. So without much delay, let's start on. Before starting today's topic, I kindly want to inform you that you can download the 2-pager guide on project uncertainty and dealing with them. This will be add-on to this lecture and also summary information for uncertainty and risk performance domain if you are preparing for the near project management examination in future. First of all, let's start with the question, what is risk? People often have a notion that risk are any bad outcomes or consequences, but is it really so? A risk is an event which is uncertain and may not be identified beforehand but may cause any positive or negative consequences. The negative risks are called threats and positive risks are called opportunities. These threats and opportunities can cause negative or positive impact on the project objectives. Again, I want to emphasize that there are different ways of dealing with threats and opportunities, and please be cautious as this topic could be very important for exam. You may get a simulated question on a project case where there is a potential threat and you may be asked what you will do in response to that threat. So please download the fast memorizing points and risk response strategy from the link in the description for more on this topic. So after risk, let's start with the topic uncertainty. So what is uncertainty? Simply put forward, it is not having a knowledge of something. So as a project management professional, what could go uncertain in a project? It could be anything such as cost, time, resources, quality needed, or what was planned could be uncertain. And this is more uncertain in agile projects because in the agile projects, planning is not done upfront, or we can say planning is done throughout the project. So why should we know how to deal with uncertainty? The answer is simple, because dealing with uncertainty helps to reduce the risk in the project. You might have gone through some other terms in the beginning when I was dealing with agendas. These terms are ambiguity, complexity, volatility, etc. And we will discuss about them later. Just understand for now that these are mistaken along with each other. So in exam, if you see these terms, chances are examiner is trying to test whether you know these terms by heart and whether you are able to use them in a practical scenario. So we learned that we have to face a lot of uncertainty which we can solve through the risk management approach for the predictive projects. But for the agile projects, there are many other approaches of this uncertainty reduction. I am covering this up for agile projects because there is more room for uncertainty as planning is done throughout the project, and there are rooms for changes and additions throughout the project. So many questions in exam may come from the perspective of risk reduction through reduction of uncertainty in the agile project. Question: how do you cover or mitigate the risk of uncertainty in the agile projects? The answer is through the use of spike. So what is spike? Spike is a short iteration or a small time box effort to reduce the uncertainty or project risk. Note that spikes are basically done at the start of the project and much before the real project development work starts. Spikes helps to identify the failure fast and fail early, a term fast failure. When you fail early, you learn early and you take actions to mitigate from such risk early. There are basically two types of spikes. This is not so important from the exam perspective, but just shortly understand that it could be a brief risk-based spike or proof of concept or architectural spike. So we just talked about the short iterative approach of dealing with the agile-based uncertainty. What to do with predictive or risk management through management of uncertainty in general. First is through gathering as much information as possible through any online or offline means. So how can we do that? That can be done through market analysis, survey, expert opinions, or reading from the past failures. A great tool for this could be lessons learned repository. As with every failure, we write why we failed and what could have been done the other way so that the future failures could be prevented. Another approach is building in resilience in the product, service, or project that is producing any product or service. So what is resilience? We go through a lot of changes which could be unexpected. Resilience is the ability to adapt to those unexpected changes or to respond quickly to those changes so that their effort could be minimized. So what can be done to build up the resilience? Anything that includes good planning, good change control procedure, good risk management approach, good prototype product, and as I discussed earlier, a spike-based approach for basically the agile-based project could be useful in building up the resilience. Another way of dealing with uncertainty is preparing for any outcomes or multiple outcomes. If you know that the possible bad outcomes that can arise are less, you can prepare in advance for those outcomes as well. You can develop risk response strategy, characterize the events to estimate the likelihood of the occurrence and seriousness of their occurrence. Another way of looking at this is to develop alternatives if the failure occurred beforehand in the planning phase only. When we have more alternatives of working, we decrease the chances of uncertainty. Another term that is largely mistaken with the uncertainty is ambiguity. We learn that uncertainty is the state of lack of understanding of anything. For example, it could be anything technical, any problems, and any solutions to solve those problems. Ambiguity is a lot similar to uncertainty, but it is just being unclear. You know something, but are having difficulty to choose the correct options, or you are confused whether what you thought as potential solution will really solve the problem. Just understand it as a state of being unclear, unlike the state of being totally unknown as in case of uncertainty. There could be two basic types of ambiguity. These are the situational ambiguity and conceptual ambiguity. Conceptual ambiguity is the lack of effective knowledge or right knowledge about something. Situational ambiguity is the state when there are multiple ways to solve any problem or multiple outcomes of these solutions. So how can we deal with ambiguity? This can be done via experimenting, building prototypes, and through progressive elaboration. When we form prototypes or experiments, we can reduce the ambiguity because the causes of the risk get to the surface and so that we can locate them easily. Progressive elaboration refers to ongoing improvement of a project plan based on new learnings and insights obtained during the project lifecycle. So we can do that from the lessons learned directory, refining the present projects based on the past history, and what we learned about the similar project in past can help us to reduce the chances of ambiguity. Another key term that is largely confused with uncertainty and ambiguity is complexity. Complexity is the state of difficulty in management. It could be because of uncertainty, ambiguity, human and system behavior, or it could be due to many other technical aspects. Complexity can arise due to multiple reasons when the networking increases. I mean to say, when the factors that may influence anything, or say when the factors that affect the project increases, naturally the complexity increases as it is more and more difficult to manage the project. So we can work with complexity in multiple ways, such as we can work with system-based complexity, we can work with the complexity reframing, and we can work with the complexity that is process-based. First of all, let's start with the system-based complexity. Let's learn two terms, decoupling and simulation. Decoupling simply means simplifying a system and reducing the connected variables. With decoupling, we know how a small part of the system can work on its own. Simulation. Simulation means similar but unrelated scenarios that can be used to simulate the system components. Reframing based complexity. There is also one term, diversity, which means we can reduce the complexity by viewing a system from the diverse perspective. We can use Delphi method for this purpose. So what is a Delphi method or Delphi technique? The Delphi method is a process used to arrive decision or say opinion by surveying a panel of experts. So they can say answers around each round based on how they interpret group response provided to them. The ultimate result is meant to be a true consensus of what the group thinks. Process-based complexity. The complexity can be reduced by iteration, which involves developing projects gradually by adding features one by one so that we can have customers' view on whether we are going on the right track and understand what works and what does not. So iteration is a process-based complexity reduction technique which we use in the Agile projects. Similarly, engagement. Stakeholder engagement is a big part of the stakeholder management domain in any project, and this is because good stakeholder engagement reduces the assumptions that can lead into a wrong project estimation. Another is fail-safe technique. For critical system, we can build some elements that will stop the functionality whenever there is any critical failure in the system. So this also reduces the complexity. Another term that is quite commonly used or that is common in the risk and uncertainty management domain is volatility. Volatility means the chances of having rapid, unpredictable changes. So as a project management professional, you will not welcome volatility in the projects and try to reduce that as far as possible, because it will affect the resources, cost and schedule that you plan. So what could be the ways to reduce the volatility? First is building up the contingency and management reserves, and second is alternative analysis. Let's deal about the reserves first. Contingency reserves are used to manage identified risk, which are known as known unknowns, and these are the calculated or estimated and linked to specific risk beforehand in the actual planning phase itself. Sometimes there could be the management risk, which cannot be used as easily as the contingency reserves. Management reserves are only available to the project managers for unidentified risk and with the higher management approval. Note that reserves are not additional cost to any projects. On the figure given at the right hand side, you will see how the budgets are allocated from the smallest activity level up to the total project budget. Activities make the work and the work packages. So there are the work packages estimates here. Work packages cost can be assessed with the associated control accounts. And since many work packages can have similar control account, the estimates of the control account could be more. Then there is a project estimates after determining all the costs of all the work packages of the project. We add contingency reserves to that to get the cost baseline, and further the total cost of the project can be assessed by adding the management reserves to all the costs. Alternative analysis. There could be various alternatives of doing work in any project, including outsourcing, sequencing, reprioritizing, using different approaches, etc. And a good alternative analysis considers the time and cost impacts of these alternatives on the project, which can help to reduce the volatility. Again, let me remind you that volatility means rapid and unpredictable change. There are other terms that you should be knowing for preparation for the exams. These are the risk appetite and risk threshold. Risk appetite or risk tolerance is the measure of the level of the risk that can be acceptable in a project or to a person or organization. And about risk threshold, as we go on increasing the risk, a stage reaches in which the risk becomes no longer tolerable, and this point is called risk threshold. It is a point beyond which risk becomes intolerable or unacceptable. When the project has very low appetite for risk or negative impacts of the risk, we call such projects risk averse. So please understand these terms also. Risk averse is any project or any work that has very low appetite for risk, or we can say which has a very low risk threshold. Thank you so much for working with me so far in this lecture as well. Before ending this lecture, I want to re-emphasize that there are different ways of dealing with the threats and opportunities. This topic could be very important for the exam. You may get a simulated questions on a project case where there is potential threat and what you will do in response to that threat. Please download the fast memorizing points and risk response strategy from the link in the description for more on this. Thank you so much.